SkillsForward. Dan's going to be responding to Andy Durnham's session from EMSI, we've just all been in, which was fantastically informative. Dan is also a fellow of the IEP. As you can see through this technology conference, we've been relying on a lot of intellect from our fellows. Really happy to have Dan here. And he's going to be talking about how you better understand your customer and encourage the use of technology to plan effective pathways. Really, really important, I think, in the recovery phase of this economic challenge we face at this moment in time, and as we're likely to face over the coming couple of years at least. Don't forget, at the end of this session and at the end of our day at 2:30, we've got a 30-minute networking session, which will provide an opportunity for you to come back and have a chat about what you've learned, your key takeaways for the days, and also what we can potentially do better, what you've enjoyed, all of those things. So without further ado, really important we get on with this and hear from Dan. So over to you, Dan.
Not a problem. Let me share my screen and use technology. So here we go. I'm just checking that you can see my slides okay.
All good, Dan.
Brilliant, thank you. So firstly, thank you, Scott, and the IEP for allowing me to be involved in this conference. And also thank you to Andy from EMSI for the previous session. I thought it was really insightful and touched on quite a lot of the things that I truly believe are crucial as we prepare people for the world of work and entering the labour market. So one of the things we're going to touch on today is how you can harness and use the power of data to truly understand your learner, your customer. So a little bit about me. As Scott has mentioned, I'm the Managing Director for SkillsForward. I'm also Director of Operations for the Learning and Work Division within NCFE. I am a Fellow with the Institute for Employability Professionals, Business Law and Management graduate. Very passionate about employability as a sector. It's where my career began. So, in 2009, I think the last people session was when my first ever job as an employment advisor began. And, I was there frontline, working with long-term unemployed individuals and needed to support them back into sustainable employment. Having said that, my most rewarding job has and always will be is as a dad. And I have a 6-year-old with an attitude of a 16-year-old. So that certainly keeps me on my toes throughout the working week. In terms of the agenda for today, we're going to touch on from myself and a SkillsForward perspective, the remobilizing and realigning and how you can rethink effective careers in education, information, advice and guidance, how you can use the data and analytics and the insights to improve efficiencies. And I think, conference sponsors, Cognisoft in the next responder session will be touching on some of that data and efficiencies of data as well in their session. And then looking at some of the other technology trends. And as Andy touched on in his previous session, we are in the middle and start of the industrial revolution. So thinking about the use of data and technology in its broadest sense. Before I continue, I think I must give credit and thanks to my colleague Leah, who I believe is on the session, for helping pull these slides together. So a massive thank you for that, because we wouldn't be as organised, Scott, if Leah hadn't have supported me with pulling this presentation together. So some of the things that we're facing at the moment as an economy, and again, when we're thinking about remobilizing and rethinking the approach to support employability, the numbers are vast. And these are some of the statistics that are available within the public domain, but the early economic impact is alarming, and I think it's the sector such as ours and employability skills and training to be able to support the remobilization of the economy. And I think skills are going to be absolutely crucial to be able to support people back into employment and even reskilling to change sectors, because some of the sectors, as we've seen through some of the news and the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, some sectors are struggling and even dying You know, the high street was suffering before March, and it's suffering even more so now. And as you've touched on in the previous session with Andy, Scott, the hospitality sector, and you know, we have had government schemes to support that, but again, I still think you know, those jobs that were available for people in those sectors are few and far between. So skills are going to make a massive impact on how we recover from this. In terms of CIAEG, and I think if I was to put myself in the shoes of an employment advisor in 2009, and then think about how I will be able to approach that now, I think it's really important to stress that using labour market intelligence and the you know, the amazing data we can get from organisations like MZ, and putting that into context in a regional and local economic level, but then understanding your customer in terms of how you can map those individuals to those opportunities is fundamental. And if I was to think about how I would approach an employment advisor role now from when I did it in 2009, I would be doing it very differently, not removing the human element at all, because I think you still need that interaction with individuals. But given some of the restrictions that we're facing as a country, we've had a national lockdown, we're facing regional lockdowns. It's about how you rethink the delivery of that careers education, information, advice and guidance. And the challenge is to make sure that it's still effective, but it's more important than ever before. We are going to see future growth and you know, the reliance on the welfare system. And again, I think it's important to use the data specifically to identify the core skills that individuals have got, and how you can then translate those to the opportunities that you can see within your local area through labour market intelligence, through the Job Centre Plus, through various schemes that have been released in terms of a plan for jobs and Kickstart, and how you use all of that information to ensure that you're appropriately action planning for that individual in order for them to take the sufficient steps towards sustainable employment. I think some of the things that we're going to, you know, pulling out from some of the research we've done in the organisation is, you know, within the next 20 years, manufacturing is likely to shrink. Retail, hospitality and travel have been massively impacted, and that full impact is still unknown. And, you know, as furlough comes to an end and we start to see more of the data and analysis come out from that, again, we need to rethink how we approach careers advice and guidance, and how we support people, not into quick, fast jobs, because we need to think about sustainability. And the only way the economy is going to recover is through sustainable employment opportunities. And it's about understanding your individual and the data that you've got to be able to appropriately support them on those steps. STEM is going to see an increase in terms of technology. We're all using technology. You know, we're on a digital technology conference over the last 2 days, and we'll see more and more of that, specifically as the industrial revolution 4.0 is suggesting, and some of the data that we're seeing as a business is technology shaping different occupations and different sectors. And it's how you match an individual, not only to the industry, but as Andy mentioned in his previous session, you're matching someone to an industry, but also an occupation. And that occupation can sit within various different industries, but it's the technology elements of that. So health and social care, for example, there is a shortage of appropriately skilled people. And how do we support people who may be working and have transferable skills from hospitality, for example, and how can we support those in terms of a transition into the opportunities within health and social care, within education technology, and the jobs that are going to be readily available for people. And we're going to need to make sure that people are well informed. And again, that goes back to using the data that you have available. And you know, I'll talk about some of the tools and support that we have as a business. But again, looking at that labour market intelligence, what is it telling you in that local level? How are you then linking that to people's interests, to their capabilities, to their future goals and aspirations, in order for them to find work, but fundamentally stay in work? I think the way we approach careers advice and guidance, and you know, we're all dialed into a conference remotely. You need to focus on the skill of that individual, but also the transferable skills. Think about the knowledge of the economy. Again, going back to the labour market information. Think about you know, utilising the human capital and how to get the best people and what interests them. There needs to be more innovation in terms of the way we deliver employment programs, and looking at, where is the entrepreneurial spirit, opportunities for self-employment, as well as looking at individuals who may be in work but underemployed, and there's a target group of underemployment that I think need to be supported, as well as those who are in the unfortunate position to be out of work. And it's looking at that regional and localized labour market information, as well as fully understanding your customers' barriers, goals, aspirations, and skills and transferable skills in order to be able to match the two together to create those positive outcomes and opportunities. I think I see good examples of careers advice and guidance. I also see the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think, for particularly young people who have been displaced as a result of the COVID pandemic, opportunities that young people thought were available to them, such as, we've seen a decline in apprenticeships, some of the job opportunities that they thought may be available, that rug has almost been pulled from underneath them. And I think it's really crucial, when you are on the front line and you're supporting individuals into employment, is thinking about how are you utilising all of the tools that are available around you, public agencies, employers, some of the voluntary services, linking in with schools and colleges to make sure that all of the advice, and you've got all of the tools readily available to you to give the most appropriate support, because not one individual component can do it in isolation. You need to use all of those different components together in order to be able to appropriately support someone. So, looking at how you're supporting people with their job search in a different way. Have they got the right digital skills to be able to apply for work online? Have they got the right skills and personal presentation skills to be able to have an interview via Zoom, via Teams, via Skype, and various other different technologies that we are all now getting used to as a sector, because of the social restrictions and limitations we have to be there in person, face to face. I think it's important that, again, by realigning and rethinking careers advice and guidance alongside and almost in partnership with that labour market information, will help people of all ages, of all backgrounds and social demographics achieve their full potential. And it's about, again, piecing all of that together to create the most appropriate plan. And it's got to be a personalised, individualised guidance plan for that person, and using the data to really create individualized learning experiences and opportunities in order for people to progress moving forward. So again, the data-driven side, I heard Andy mention on his presentation that is a data geek. I am a fellow data geek. I like to interpret data, use data to help me make decisions, not only for running the business, but thinking more broadly in some of the other voluntary roles that I do as a governor for a school, fellow of the IEP, and things like that, where using that data that is available to make informed choices. That is the same for IAG. I think, you use the data and insight that is available to you to make a choice about how you can best support that individual in terms of the steps they're taking to find and secure sustainable employment. Digital delivery is going to be different, and we shouldn't underestimate how organisations will need to change their delivery model in terms of offering still a level of personalisation, but doing that from a distance. And again, I've said earlier, it's not about removing the human element in all of this, but it's about utilising technology to its greatest asset and still being able to offer a personalised experience to support an individual, but make it more responsive and detailed, backed up with that data and insight that it can give you. I think, again, going back to 2009 when I was an employment advisor, and traditionally I would be back to back with appointments, and I'd be signposting and facilitating group sessions on job search, CV writing. We could do that more broadly digitally. You can still run group sessions like we are doing now. You can have those one-to-one interventions with individuals. And I think that, the use of technology can offer more than we've ever had before. And I think it's about embracing that change. Who'd have thought in March what we would need to do as a sector, just not just within employability, but education and skills. And we was all nervous and we was all concerned about how we would implement this and the use of technology and how our ways of working would change. But we're now in September and we've done it. There might have been bumps along the way, but we have done it and we've come out the other side, and it's about not forgetting the journey we've been on over the last 3-4 months in terms of embracing technology, but using the lessons learned and really taking forward some of the highs that can support people and progress people even from a distance. And that, you know, that's a real nice segue into one of the products that we have here in SkillsForward around really understanding that individual and you know, identifying their starting point, their baseline strengths, as well as areas that can be developed. So a great example of how technology can be used to understand your customer and deliver employment programs is SkillsWork. It's been officially endorsed by the IEP as well. It does support the recent expression of Gatsby benchmark for evidencing that high quality careers advice and guidance. And it is a tool that we use to really evidence the baseline strengths and areas for improvement of an individual. And that's been mapped against kind of the core competencies that have been identified by the CBI. So we've built a diagnostic tool with various situational judgments and questioning to really pinpoint an individualized, personalized learning path for an individual against key skill areas that you can see on screen. So, you know, initiative, their persistence, their motivation, the core fundamentals of job seeking and CV writing, but also how do they think creatively? How do they collaborate with individuals? So we're using all of that data and insight to form an individualized pathway for that person, which is then underpinned by learning resources, high quality videos, interactive resources and activities, information pages, which is then all consolidated with summative assessments. So you can identify the baseline of that individual, and then you can measure distance traveled over time. So when a learner and a customer has undertaken their diagnostic and then access their individual skills plan based on their strengths and areas for improvement, you can see once they've passed summative assessments and gone down that journey, you can see where the strengths have improved, where you've seen distance traveled. So someone might have required development in their initiative skills, and as they've accessed the learning materials and resources that we've worked and put together in partnership with organisations such as the Learning and Work Institute, we can see how those skills have improved. And again, as an employment advisor, you know, back in 2009, I would have used this alongside my labour market information. Hello. Oh, I heard someone there. I would have used this tool alongside the labour market intelligence in my local area in order to be appropriately signpost and action plan the skills improvements that individuals need, and how I can then map those to specific job opportunities within my local area. It's not about replacing advisors, and I've said that throughout my presentation. You know, the guidance that frontline delivery staff and employability practitioners play is absolutely crucial, and it is going to play even more of an important role in the future in terms of how we support and remobilise the economy by interpreting skills, using skills, and helping people to develop new skills. But access to high quality data is going to be crucial for any business. In order for you to be able to have the right direction, support, to be able to give that encouragement backed up with an evidence base, to be able to produce analytics reports to help you guide not only an individual but cohorts of learners along a journey that is going to lead to success. And it's about then being able to analyse the training pathways that go down, the impact of your interventions that you've taken to support that individual, because you can learn lessons from that impact analysis in terms of how to continuously improve, you know, the profession and the advice and guidance we give. But again, supporting to lifelong learning. Once they've secured employment, that journey doesn't stop. Do they need additional skills and support in terms of being able to continue that lifelong learning journey and upskill once they're in employment? And I think, you know, someone who's always embraced lifelong learning, currently doing my master's in strategic leadership, you know, it helps me retain people. And you know, when I look at my own workforce, the first conversation I have with them in their one-to-ones and KPI meetings is around their own development. what do they want, how, you know, and where do they want to be. And I think it's okay getting someone into employment, but for them to sustain it, you have to continue that trajectory of skills development and helping people, you know, become better in terms of their personal and professional development and fulfillment. Excuse me. So Industry 4.0 is upon us, and I think, again, that's been exacerbated throughout lockdown. And it's about using people's skill set more than ever before in terms of time management, communication, and adaptability. We've all experienced significant amounts of resilience and adaptability over the last 3 to 4 months. How do we help our customers and learners develop and build on those skills as well? Identifying gaps in knowledge, and then being able to appropriately action plan and make relevance to the labour market information and intelligence, as well as the training and development we can offer as employability professionals to upskill people where they are lacking in certain areas. You know, many people may be changing sectors as a result of the pandemic, and some of the, you know, the data we're seeing around particular sectors and where there are peaks and where there are declines. If people are moving sectors, it's been able to look at the adaptability and the transferable skills that they have to use within a completely different industry. And again, touching on what Andy said in his session about labour market information, it's that industry and occupation. So you may be, you know, an administrator within the health service, but you may have previously been an administrator within, you know, the hospitality or, you know, the travel sector. It's the same occupation, but the industry is different, and it's about using the most appropriate information to be able to help someone make that transition in the most effective way. There's a lot of gig work at the moment, and I think, you know, consultancy, freelancing, a lot of temporary contracts, and again, it's about not missing out on those opportunities that may be right for particular individuals on their journey towards success, and tapping into people's entrepreneurial spirit. We've seen a lot of resilience, but we've seen a lot of adaptability, particularly within the SME community. We've seen a lot of businesses flip very quickly in terms of what they even offer as products and services, and how they've adapted their business model to be able to respond to a very different buying behaviour, being able to cope with the restrictions of lockdown and social distancing. Don't lose that innovation. We need to encourage that more. And that entrepreneurial spirit and real grit and determination that we've seen amongst businesses, long may that continue. And again, using technology to embrace that along the way, and really, you know, improving people's online presence. It's okay just having a CV, but update it regularly, tailor it to the job you're applying for. Don't send the same CV to every single job opportunity, because your chances of success will be reduced, and research shows that. If you've done training throughout lockdown, and you know, you found yourself being able to participate in personal and professional development during the lockdown, make sure it's on your CV and really improve your online presence to be able to market yourselves appropriately to employers. And again, going back to the labour market intelligence point, is when you see opportunities that, you know, inspire you, they appeal to your skill set, your personal goals, your ambitions as an individual, shout about it to those employers and market yourself most effectively. And again, using the digital you know, platforms to be able to do that is extremely effective. So that goes on to you know, some of the things around how we reshape our delivery in line with technology trends. You know, we've seen the release of essential digital skills qualifications from the 1st of August this year, and the digital entitlement for adults around being able to upskill in digital literacy. We've seen a lot of digital poverty come out of the lockdown. It's not just a case of access to a laptop or a tablet, but, you know, in some areas, have they got broadband? Have they got access to the internet? And not underestimating that, you know, in areas of extreme deprivation, there is going to be that digital poverty, but also, you know, making sure that we're improving digital literacy alongside the core meta employability skills that, you know, we all know and have done for a significant amount of time. Critical thinking, being creative, and utilizing emotional intelligence to be able to make real good judgments on how you can support and progress someone on their career towards securing employment, or they may be in employment but wanting more hours, wanting more responsibility. use the data to make those decisions, because you've got an evidence base which is helping inform those decisions that you're making to support that person on that journey. So I think, you know, the goal for us really is to ensure that the guidance that frontline staff and practitioners are using is giving people the skills, the tools, and the data to be able to deliver that high quality careers advice and guidance that people are going to need. It's essential. Practitioners from any organisation need to ensure that they have the ability, the skills, but also the tools to be able to deliver our programmes. And we may be delivering those programs remotely, and it's about how we understand and support our customers to make the best use of the labour market information, but some of the online tools and the support that we can give them. Help people of all ages really understand their own potential, and you know, skills workers, and we're seeing a lot of customers using our employability diagnostic to help not only showcase areas that are requiring development, but also highlighting where people are really proficient, and giving people that motivation to say, you are really good at this. Let's look at how we can translate that into a job application, or how we can use these incredible skills that you're demonstrating where you have high proficiency into a different sector that you may not have worked in before. The labour market intelligence, again, touching on the local demographic and making sure that we're looking at geographical mobility, as well as understanding the various different career pathways that are available to us, is going to be really important. Measure impact and use data to ensure that you can measure impact and see the distance travelled and the positive outcomes that we have as a sector. There is no better feeling, and you know, my biggest highlight of my career is when someone comes to you and thanks you for changing their life because you've got them a job. We don't work in this sector for the money, and you know, when someone comes and you've worked with that individual and you've supported them into employment and they come back and thank you, there's no better job satisfaction. I did my dissertation at university on job satisfaction, and I'm privileged and proud of being able to work in a sector where I see, hear and feel job satisfaction by being able to support people and change their lives. So don't not measure that. Use the data to drive future successes where we can learn from positive outcomes. We can learn from the impact that we're having on people, to be able to continuously improve and make our services even better than I know they already are. And again, making sure people are prepared with the relevant digital literacy and the skills that they're going to need as part of you know, industrial revolution, to be able to access labour market, but also when they're in the labour market, thrive and progress. That's our contact details, and open up for any questions that have come in whilst I've been chatting away, because I can talk all day, as you know, Scott.
Yeah, well, Dan, I'm incredibly impressed, actually. I think you get the prize today for finishing bang on time in terms of your presentation. So yeah, I know you're quite competitive, so you'll be very pleased with that. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Over to you, Emma. What have we got on the kind of questions there?
Sure. I think there's one here that you've put down in there, Scott, is how are we going to make sure that people get the skills they need to grasp the opportunities that become available?
Again, it's about understanding your customer, understanding the skills that they've already got. Unless you understand the barriers and the skills that they've already got, how can you then appropriately plan how you will work with that person to develop further skills that they may need? But again, I'm going to keep referring back to the previous session. What is that local labour market information telling you? What are the opportunities at that local geographical level? And then how can you map what they already know in terms of transferable skills, but what do they need to secure that opportunity? That is absolutely paramount, because I always use this, and you know, if you've got 1,000 jobs for underwater basket weaving, you know, in Nottingham, which is where I'm at the moment, unless you've got people trained to be underwater basket weavers, you're not going to fill those opportunities. So look at the opportunities, look at the labour market information. And this is where the skills and employability sector comes in. This is where colleges, training providers need to be tailoring the opportunities and the provision that they're delivering to the jobs in their regional economy. So, you know, don't go to a college to learn a skill if you're never going to get a job from that. And it's about using that intelligence in the most appropriate way, from a curriculum design in a college through to when you're delivering frontline advice and guidance in terms of how you bridge the two together.
Thanks, Dan. We've got a question. Well, it's more of a statement from Leslie Gordon. She says that not all employers focus on CPD, so I'm guessing she's wondering if there's a way to change that perspective in employers.
Yeah, and again, it's about how you articulate the value of that in terms of productivity, employee engagement, and staff retention. There are various different schemes and funded schemes, you know, to deliver employer CPD. So it's about being able to also demonstrate it may not cost them anything. As a levy paying employer, we fully utilise the apprenticeship route. And you know, I've got managers doing their level 5 operational management qualifications, utilising our levy. I use the apprenticeship as an opportunity for new entrants into the business. And I've seen succession planning in the business where I've got individuals who started as apprentices, maybe at a level 2, they then did a level 3 qualification. They're now doing a level 4 leadership and management. They've progressed into a leadership position, and they're starting the level 6 degree apprenticeship in January. Because I pay into the levy, it's not costing us anything, but there are other schemes. You know, you've got the European Social Fund and skill support funds out there to be able to fund CPD. But I think it's about articulating the impact of that, because I don't have a high staff turnover. I have a really engaged, motivated workforce because I understand what makes them tick. I understand what they want. And I always lead my one-to-ones and KPI meetings with that first. Yes, we get onto targets and performance against targets, and that's a, you know, a given. But I always talk first about what development do you want? Do you need any? How are you finding things? Have you seen any opportunities where you may want to develop yourself? Even personally, it might not be a professional development. It could be how can we navigate and point them to some personal development, because it's about engaging with your staff and making sure that they're motivated and you're showing that you've got their best interests at heart. So I think, you know, my answer to that is around demonstrating, and there is research out there, the impact of how you, if you do embrace CPD, the return on that investment is fundamental.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We've got a question from Leslie Clydesdale. She said that some providers are asking me to recruit specific LMI coordinators, but where those providers don't have the specialist people in their business to go for the intelligence, how do you see frontline advisors gaining this for themselves? Is LMI something that needs to become part of their training?
In short, yes. And again, if I go back to what I was saying earlier, based on me being an employment advisor in 2009 versus if I was to do that job now, to be a successful frontline advisor in order to help get people into employment, I wouldn't be able to do it without LMI. I would not be able to do it without understanding the market that I'm working in and the communities of where my learners, customers are coming from, because how can I then be successful at matching them to opportunities? I don't understand that local economy and the jobs market available within that area. Again, touching on some of the things that we've done in our employability diagnostic around, you know, what is their baseline? Where do they need to develop? And I would have to, if I was to be successful in today's labour market and you know, the challenge that we're going to have in terms of how we do come together to remobilise the economy, the challenge I would have is if I didn't have that data, I didn't have those tools, I wouldn't be able to, hand on heart, successfully get people into employment if I didn't understand the labour market information. And that has to be trained, you know, understanding data, manipulating data, and having, you know, as a data geek, and I know Andy from MZ professed to be the same, not everyone is. It's about how can you train and support our delivery teams to understand data and then make use of that data to effectively support people.
And just to add something in here just quickly, so I know we're running out of time, in the IEP induction, the employability sector induction, we actually cover labour market information. So if anybody doesn't currently have access to that training within their own organisation and you're a member of the IEP, you can contact the IEP direct and ask to sign up and actually take those training courses, which includes labour market information.
That's brilliant. Sorry,
personalised.
thanks, Emma, for that. That's absolutely fantastic. And can I just bring you to Peter, who makes an interesting point? Now, I don't think there's enough time to kind of delve into this, Dan, but I wonder if you've got some initial thoughts. Peter's already said that he's in Melbourne in Australia, so I'm surprised he's still awake, which is fantastic because it's quite late at night there. But he says, can you discuss the use of data that is historical to provide advice for the future?
Yeah. So we've done quite a lot of data mining and analysis of historical data in order to improve the accuracy of assessment and also the speed of assessment, because we've been in business for 15 years and we have I think around average 2.9 to 3 million people coming through using our technology and our software, undertaking that initial assessment. That's not just across employability, English, maths, digital, ESOL, other skills areas, but we use that historical data to inform how to improve the algorithm and the calculation in terms of the result of an assessment, but then looking at research. And when we developed SkillsWork, we looked at research from the CBI, the Learning and Work Institute, and looking at the research and the data analysis that they had done in order to inform what are the skills areas that employers are looking for, what are the skills areas where we need to develop the assessment, develop the learning materials and that advice and support that we can provide digitally online in order to move someone from A to point B. Happy to pick up separately with him if he wants to drop us an email as well.
Thanks, Dan.
One more question there, Emma. Do you want? I'll read it. LMI data is essential. Oh no, it's a statement. Sorry, I do apologise.
Yeah.
Leah says she's using it now to guide her children to show them what opportunities will be available in the future. Wish I had that info when I made my choices or career pathways and training. Absolutely fundamental, isn't it, in terms of understanding that?
Well, another thing as well, Scott, is I said at the beginning, my son is 6. The job that he will probably do doesn't exist yet. And it's about making sure we're using the data, we're using that labour market intelligence to make the most informed decisions. Because when Riley grows up, and I'll be proud of him whatever he does, but it's likely that the job he's going to do isn't even been invented yet. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think you're right. I mean, you're considerably older than me, clearly, but when we were at school, careers advice was probably not what it is nowadays, to be honest. And I think what you did is either you took an education route and chose what would be considered to be a significant profession, or you chose something you were interested in. There was very little data analysis about what opportunities there. And I think when you look at a so-called professional occupation like legal or medicine or anything like that, the jobs are always going to be there. There is a requirement.
Yeah, it's very specific, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you look at other things, more vocational activity, I mean, I don't even think I knew what vocation was when I was at school. So I think when you look at more vocational activity, I think there is that ebbs and flows massively. And that's why the labour market information. And look, we're going to do our customers a massive disservice if we train everybody in warehousing and there's no warehousing jobs to go to. Exactly. It's an absolute fundamental waste of time.
Exactly. I didn't even think shows my ignorance at the time, I didn't even know the employability sector existed as an industry. I knew job centres existed, but I didn't know there was a whole sector that sat behind it in terms of supporting people and organisations. That I fell into that. I didn't know it existed until I got the job as an employment advisor. But I agree. I think we would be doing everyone a disservice if we weren't preparing people for the opportunities that are there and available for them to sustain employment. And again, that all goes back to understanding that local economy and the labour market in that local area and the job opportunities that are there to support people into.
Agreed, Dan. Agreed, absolutely. So I'm just typing something in the chat because I think we've come to the end of our discussion. Thank you very much to Peter. Peter says thanks for discussing his his point from the other side of the world. So that's the power of technology, really, isn't it? We've got people, I know we've got an individual from Egypt, we've got an individual from Melbourne, Australia. Now, this is the power of technology. We can bring it to a much wider audience, even given some of the technical challenges that we have. But yeah, I just want to say thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, of course, to Emma to helping produce the session and for managing the chat and the questions. I just want to remind everyone that we've now got a sort of 15-20 minute break. Grab a cup of tea, grab a sandwich if you've not had your lunch yet, whatever you really feel like doing, and then come along and join us at 2:30 for the final session of the Digital Technology Conference, which is your opportunity to put your camera on if you feel like it, say something if you want to, but just come and let us know what you feel, what you felt, what your takeaways, what you've learned. And that will enable us not only to have a fantastic, fruitful discussion, but it will also enable us to plan even better activity in the future, which is what we're all striving for, isn't it?
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan, and we'll see you in a moment. 20 minutes. Fantastic. Thank you. Just stay there, Dan.